We did it, guys. We got early access to all Wizards of the Coast books, starting with the Wild Beyond the Witchlight and the alternate cover, guys. Look at this thing. This is the sweetest cover I've ever seen. I think this is literally my favorite. A Displacer Beast, the colors. Oh my God, it looks amazing. It's beautiful. And I'm honored to be able to get these books early, to be able to give you guys early access videos to all these different books. No matter what kind of book it is, I want to do something depending on how well these videos go. So I'm going to dive into this book and give you all the top 10 things. I just dove into this whole thing this whole day. I've spent a whole day with it, just going through it, writing down my interesting stuff about it. And there's been no spoilers. I'm not going to give away. There's an adventure in here. It's a Feywild adventure. I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but there are going to be a bunch of stuff we can learn from to see if you'd want to get it for yourself. And as a homebrew DM that I only have ever ran full homebrew worlds, this has been probably the most enticing I have to want to go run a module. I know I'll save my full thoughts to the end of the video, but I am really excited to dive in this for you guys. And if you guys like to see this stuff in general, these videos I've done over these new release books haven't done that well, except for Tasha's Cauldron stuff, because that's more of a homebrew type thing. But if you guys want to see more of these videos, if this video gets 1,000 likes in the first 24 hours, I will do another follow-up video diving into even more stuff, because I'm just going to skim the surface of this thing with some 10 really cool things that you can take inspiration from for your own homebrew stuff. And if this blows up and gets even crazier, I could do a live stream or lots of other stuff. So let's get wild and go beyond the Witchlight. I'm going to start with an outline from this thing just for overview of what's actually in this book, its table of contents. You start off with an introduction into the Feywild. There's a lot of really cool stuff, and most of the little tips I have are neutral to be able to use anywhere, not just in the adventure module. The whole first little section, introduction into the Feywild, there's races, there's backgrounds, there's lots of stuff that I'm going to get into with some of my top 10 stuff. A lot of that top 10 stuff is right there because anyone can use it. Chapter 1 is the carnival, this really cool carnival of this Feywild themed carnival with these games you can play, lots of different really cool stuff there, but also introduces some cool NPCs. Ever since watching campaign 2 of Critical Role, I've always wanted to do my own carnival. And little segue here, next month over in November on my Patreon, I'm releasing a carnival themed faction that goes right alongside Witchlight. It's already been in the works for a while before this book came out, before I got my hands on it, and it's going to be another thing to go along with this. It is going to work entirely separate from this and it's not going to be attached to it, but you could definitely use the two of them together, and this was really cool. So diving through this thing, I already felt super at home with all the really cool carnival stuff. And then after, in chapter 2, it goes into hither, then thither, then yon, are the next 3 chapters to get deeper and deeper into the Feywild. And I'm not going to get into some of the cool stuff there. You got a swamp, you got a forest, you got a really creepy place, and then chapter 5 ends the whole adventure. Super cool stuff there. And then you got magic items, a bunch of magic items, a bunch of factions, the different factions, which are basically the NPCs. Each NPC has a stat block and a way to role play them, which brings me to the next thing, which is role play cards. There's a whole section in here, I'll show you, of role play cards. There's 32 different role play cards for these different NPCs that you have. Yeah, right here. Boom. Bunch of different role play cards. There's 32 of these things for these different NPCs. And if you guys want to see my homebrew spin on this, I think sometimes in D&D, saying the alignment, personality trait, ideal, bond, and flaw is nice and helpful, but I have a little bit more streamlined version of that. But again, let me know if you want to see a video on that. Then there's also creatures. You got a ton of monsters in here. Some of them are repeats, of course, that are in other editions, like red caps and other things from the Feywild. But there are some unique monsters in here too. And one of the coolest things is a story tracker. A story tracker is one of the top 10 things I have here. So might as well go ahead. Let's get into the top 10 stuff. Number 1 is going to be character advancement tips. This was really cool. And in general, I run milestone leveling. I've done experience gain leveling as well. I love crunching the numbers on that. But there's a really cool way of showing in an adventure module that someone else runs and you're going to try and send out to the masses. I thought it was really cool how they had threshold moments for when the characters level up. This was just really cool to me as someone who doesn't really run modules. It was cool to see the thresholds where they chose to entering in certain areas, fighting certain things. And I loved how they also said not killing certain things, just engaging with them. You could still level up no matter how you try to outthink the thing. And then there's other things, I don't want to get into spoilers where some other triggers are as far as level ups go. So second thing is the story tracker that I just referenced. It was so cool to see this story tracker as a tool for dungeon masters to be able to choose. In fact, let me just show you the story tracker. So we got right here, we got unicorn horn location, lost things in the adventure, the character who lost an item, who has it, little boxes here to see if they found it or not yet, minor curses, if they've it's cured the curse or not yet. Chapter 1, a bunch of stuff is happening in the carnival. And then we got over here, chapters 2 through 5. We have all the different stuff in there. General notes and reminders. That's some great stuff. I usually do all of this digitally, but it was really cool to have this page. I could easily make a copy of this page, and this be my go-to page to keep a pulse check on the story. It's something that I'm going to go through my Dungeon Master notes now after kind of looking through this and be like, what are the big story moments? What are the big nuggets I need to keep track of? On the back of my Dungeon Master screen, I have a thing called triggers that reminds me of things to do. So I want to kind of blend the triggers of my world on my Dungeon Master screen and the story beats and put them all on one piece of paper. It was really cool inspiration. Number 3 is that unicorn horn. Now, I have no idea. I did not fully read through the entire module from start to finish. I'm not that fast of a reader to be able to do this in one day to get this to you guys. But the unicorn horn is a very important item, and I do know some stuff about it that would be spoilers, so I'm not saying that. But the unicorn horn is a very important item. There's a roll table to roll on where this thing is in the world. There's 5 different chapters. Where this horn is can be anywhere. They could find it in the carnival. They could find it in chapter 5. And they don't know where they're going to find it. And it was really cool to have this roll table be like, here we go. What's the story going to be like? And have the dice and the different tables that they have in this thing be able to show where this very important plot piece is. The inspiration for that is sometimes as a Dungeon Master, I just like to decide where things go. But I really love the freedom of letting the dice tell that story. Next up is number 4. There's actually a section in here for new Dungeon Masters. It is really cool to see them empower new Dungeon Masters, them give them tips. Wizards of the Coast themselves giving tips to new Dungeon Masters. Entire section here, actually, you can see the unicorn horn. There's the unicorn horn. Oh my goodness. But tips for new Dungeon Masters, a whole section here and a little spot up here that's making mistakes. It's an entire thing. Dungeon Masters are fallible, just like everybody else. And even in the most experienced Dungeon Masters, make mistakes. If you overlook, forget, misrepresent something, correct yourself and move on. This is a big adventure with lots of there's a ton of stuff in here. They're just allowing Dungeon Masters not to feel so stressed about all this stuff. We have made mistakes, but okay, actually guys, remember how this thing happened? Well, it actually would have gone like this, just to stay true to the story and keep track of things, or just be like, hey, that's now a canon and we're going to keep moving forward and let's see what the story happens with that because that's now true. So it's just really cool to see them address it in that way. Little tips on armor class, how to handle armor class, hit points, damage, all that stuff. They really talked about my bloodied mechanic in the hit point section, which is something a lot of other Dungeon Masters uses. Whenever something gets to half health, it's bloodied. When it gets to 25% health, well bloodied, and when it gets to 10% health, it's on death's door. Just to use consistent phraseology to be able to describe a monster's hit points without saying it has 12 hit points. Because I don't do that. Number 5 is the cool Feywild Backgrounds. In general, I don't use backgrounds as a Dungeon Master. I like the players to just say where they go. Use backgrounds as inspiration, but then I do something different with the proficiencies and all the other stuff. But there's a lot of flavor here that I could sprinkle into those characters' backstories, have them read through this and be like, ooh, I want to do this and that, and we can really take and customize it from here. Because the Feywild is definitely something I want more stuff on. Feywild trinkets, there's a whole thing on that. But there's the Fey Lost and the Witchlight hand. But either way, there's lots of really cool tables to be able to roll on for the different Fey markings that you get. I'm going to pick a number 1 through 8, 5. Your skin sparkles in the moonlight. And both of these backgrounds actually tie into some of the stuff that happens in the adventure module too. So if I ran this, I would have at least one player be a Fey Lost and another player be a Witchlight hand. So props to Wizards of the Coast of tying their own backgrounds into their own adventures. Really smart move, something I'll probably be doing. And speaking of that, we got races. There's only 2 races here. It'd be interesting to see if there was more race possibilities, but there's already a lot of different races out there. But you have fairies and hairgons, right? Fairies are going to be your classic humanoid with fairy wings, and then you got the hairgons, the humanoid bunny people, right? These were really, really cool, which is number 6 on this list, to stick to the list, is the fairies. It's really cool. It ties into Natasha's calling of everything. There is a creating your character. You can make a human race or a fantastical race. These would be fantastical races. It gives a whole layout of what you get, and then you can choose fairy or hairgon, and you get a bunch of different stuff for that. The 2 things that stick out are flying for the fairies and rabbit hop for for the hairgons. Flying at players, oh dear, oh goodness, don't get me started on this. For myself, I would have the fairies flying. They get 30 feet of flying. Yes, there's a restriction on it that requires you not to wear any armor when you're doing this, or not to wear medium or heavy armor when you're flying. But I would probably, at least at low levels, have some sort of like, your wings are used by magic and there's only so much magic magic that you can tap into unless you're in the Feywild. So that first chapter, when they're in chapter 1 in this adventure, you're not in the Feywild. So your wings are very limited, if not, maybe not working, dare I say. And then once they're in the Feywild, they can start to fly a little bit, little bursts of time. And then over time, they get that full flying. Because there's just certain things that I feel like players would just instantly solve just with flying. Which, yes, would make that player feel cool, but save those moments for after they've earned it. That's my 2 cents on flying. But I saw the Unearthed Arcana on this rabbit race, right? And they had this weird functionality where you roll a d8 and add that many feet onto your jump. And I thought that was super clunky and terrible, honestly. But this Haragon's rabbit hop is super awesome. As a bonus action, you can jump a number of feet equal to 5 times your proficiency bonus. It scales. It's even by actual 5 feet increments, like on a grid. So at level 1, you're going to be 2 proficiency bonus times 5, 10. You're going to be able to leap 10 feet as a bonus action, which is free movement. Keep that in mind. You can use this trait only a number of times equal to proficiency bonus, and if your speed's not 0, all that kind of stuff. I really love that race. I love jumping in general. I love the jump spell, however much hate that it gets. I love the jump spell, and this jumping rabbit is pretty awesome. Little bonus tips as I'm flipping through this thing. There's lost things, and part of each of the players, when you start this thing, each of the players has some sort of lost item. Other NPCs can have lost items that are in different places. Minor curses, like you can't open a door without knocking on it first. Love stuff like that. You can't light non-magical fires, so they literally can't light fires. I love all that kind of stuff. Warlock side quests, all lots of different stuff there. So leading into number 7 is time tracker and mood tracker. There is a time tracker on the actual map itself. In the back of this book, there is a map, right? It's classic tear-outable perforated map. There's built into the map is a time tracker for the different times of the day, or as far as how things are moving along when you're in this adventure module, like what part of the day is it. There's different triggers that set off what time it is. And I thought that was a really smooth way of dealing with time and running off time as a dungeon master. What time is it? When is it? But it's tied to these events. Certain things happening mean it's a certain time of the day, and it progresses through like that. And you literally have a tracker on the map to be able to move it around. I thought that was awesome. And then there's also a mood tracker, which is a whole mechanics section in here, which makes me think of all the stuff that I have going on in Alkandar's Almanac with the reputation system, with the different, be able to get friendly and win over NPCs or groups of NPCs. There's entire mechanics in there that lets you be able to interact, and based on your interactions with the carnival, the mood of the carnival changes overall. So the players really feel like they're affecting the carnival. Good or bad. So there's also a tracker on there on the very bottom that shows all the different little phases that you can kind of move through or move up as the players do their stuff. Number 8 is all the we're still in chapter 1 of the book. It's just the inspiration for this was awesome. The ambiance, the random roll tables. I do this myself whenever I set up in a town or a location that people go to. In this case, it's the carnival. There's random roll tables for what the players see, and you can sprinkle that in as much or as little as you want to, or not even roll randomly on it, and just describe some cool thing that they're seeing as they go through this carnival, and it makes it feel alive. Just that one, I think it's a D8 roll table, has so many things that just bring that carnival literally to life. And there's more. They have games and little prizes you can play. There's little games that there's a game for each of the strength scores, or there's a game for each of the stat blocks. So there's an eye staring contest for constitution, a wrestling for strength, trying to catch a dragon's tail, all this kind of stuff that you can have the players go play games that suit their character best, or maybe not suit their character best. They just really want to go play that. And if they win, there's a whole little random roll table for prizes. This moment right then when I'm flipping through this book is when I wanted to run this thing. This is so fun. This is so much fun. That's exactly the spirit that I have whenever I was creating the stuff for the Patreon PDFs I make. All the different fun games and mini games, and just letting players be able to have fun and roll dice in these different ways that they never would have experienced before, in this really fun way with something looming over it, as happens in the rest of the book. So and there's a snail race. An entire mechanics for snail racing. Anyway, that's number 8. Number 9 is rules of conduct for the different places. This is now entering into chapter 2, so I'm going to talk vaguely, but entering into the Feywild, there's a whole bunch of stuff right whenever you get into chapter 2 about the Feywild, how it works, how you get across the feeling of the Feywild. And I think that is so important. I did a whole thing on limbo. I have a whole PDF about limbo and how things work in limbo, because you want to get across that feeling of limbo. So in the Feywild, there's one of the rules, I'm just taking one of these out, is the rule of reciprocity. Here it is. When a friend or enemy or stranger offers you a gift, you are obligated to accept it and offer something comparable value in return, be it a gift or a service. Such such reciprocation need not be helped immediately. So if somebody gives you something, even if it's an enemy, you have to give them something back. Just this alone, as a dungeon master, I'm like, oh, this is great. I can be an enemy and give them something. They have to give me something back, and if they don't, like, oh, that's just so awesome. And that feels like the Feywild. These little bargains and different things going on. There's other environmental stuff in there too. Lots of really cool stuff to hit that feel of the Feywild right in the chapter 2, right as soon as they enter the Feywild. Number 10, overall, one of the coolest things across through the rest of the book. All of those things I just talked about right there were the first chapter and entering into chapter 2. And again, that's why I'm not doing any spoilers for the rest of this thing, unless you want me to dive deeper. Let me know. But every chapter, each one of them, including chapter 1, did a great job of setting up random things to be able to have and fill in those gaps. As dungeon masters know, players can go anywhere, interact with anything. In the back of the book, they have entire NPC stat blocks for all the NPCs, roleplay cards for everything, so you aren't left in the dark of like, Then on top of those random encounters, they have all the specific locations laid out and standard module form layouts of each one in order, labeled and all that kind of stuff. And there's tons of different maps to go along with it. And even as I scanned through this thing, I felt like I could follow along with it. And I even kind of, just from the one day I've spent kind of just making this and scanning through this for you guys, I feel like I have a good pulse check on this thing and would really, really love to do it. And so my review of this whole thing, if I had to give it a 1 out of 10, I'm not an adventure person. I did Icewind Dale. I thought that was pretty interesting, and there's some other things I'd fix about it. But I want to just say a 10. I don't know. I feel like I'm just an overall positive thinking type person. So I want to say a 10 because I love the Feywild. I love the carnival. I think that being led through it in these different places and the different chapters you can go to seems so cool. There's the lost items that you have to go find and keep track of, the curses, the little twists and turns. Lots of really cool stuff. And now I would have to actually play through the adventure to give it an official rating, but just reading it, I've never been this excited about an adventure because I'm a full-blown homebrew DM. I would be running this right now if I didn't just recently start my own homebrew campaign, which I have a second channel for that I'm going to be launching here pretty soon. Stay tuned for that. Dungeon Coach Plays, it's coming soon. I'm going to have a whole update series on this campaign. We're 6 sessions in right now, and I've been logging every single one, making videos for each chapter. So stay tuned for that. But if I wasn't doing that, I would be running this. And my God, look at the cover. The art in this thing is amazing. The artists that put this thing together, the content creators that laid this whole thing out, it looks absolutely amazing. So there's my endorsement of this thing. I feel also, thank you, Wizards of the Coast, for sending me the copies of these things early. If you even see me say thank you in this way, I'm super excited to show you guys what you want to see, and let me know what you want to see. Like the video so that it tells me in multiple ways, asking me in the comments and letting me know with all the likes if you like the type of stuff I do, because I see lots of different people that do full-blown breakdowns. Ted from Nerd Immersion does breaking news before I even know anything that's going on, and Fry Minis, a friend of the channel, he's doing full breakdowns of each individual video. I think he's already made like 4 or 5 videos on this thing already. Go check him out. I'll put his links down in the description as well, of full videos over the rabbit, full videos over the fairy, lots of different stuff he's diving through like a madman. So go check him out too. I hope you guys like this. I hope you guys are excited. Stay creative. Think outside that box. Peace.